Hi there, welcome once again at my channel, Lunar Geotechnics. But I have already came to the understanding or conclusion, or whatever the correct words may be, that this is not just about lunar geotechnics. In actual fact, um, we need to expand it to the geotechnical properties of Mars. Um, SpaceX want to go to Mars. Uh, well, actually, they would have gone there already this year, but whatever the reasons may be and what happened, it's not happening this year, and probably not next year either. But a lot of the important factors on the moon, our moon, Luna, is very much applicable on Mars and many of the other planets. Whether we want to ignore it or not, the geotechnical properties are crucial for us to go to these planets, explore it, and even inhabit it for longer periods of time, or maybe even permanently. Just in the last few days, I've read on the news that China, together with Russia, want to place a nuclear reactor on the moon. And I know people get all excited when they hear the word nuclear. But the bottom line is, it is clean, safe energy. You just need to be consistent in how you keep it safe. Chernobyl had a meltdown because of safety measures not being followed. Fukushima in Japan had a meltdown because of a natural disaster. So natural disasters and geotechnics again goes hand in hand, and I'll actually be partaking in a 2-day workshop for the National Academy of Sciences in Washington about how do we approach natural disasters. But this channel is about the moon for now, but I will jump and often go to the Mars situation for the simple reason it is as important. So in terms of the moon, I'm going to follow a bit of a script. So one of the things that I want to think about and talk about is the history and exploration of the moon. We started thinking about exploring the moon many years ago, long before Neil Armstrong stepped out of the lunar module, the Eagle. We've been thinking, we, as being mankind, been thinking about exploring the moon. I can't remember in exactly which year the things were taking shape, but I remember, well, not quite remember, but in 1966, if I remember correctly, there was the Gemini program, and Neil Armstrong it was his first space flight, and it was also the first successful docking of 2 space ships in orbit. And then there were several missions even to the moon, and more than one of them were just about going around the moon to prove the concept, which then in July 1969 culminated in the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. and eventually Apollo 17 was the last manned mission to the moon. Since then, many spacecraft have been launched and is currently circulating the moon, and some of them landed. I think 2 weeks ago. Blue Horizon unfortunately had a bit of a mishap when their lander fell over as it was landing. But so that's one of the things that I think we should think about: history and the exploration of the moon. But then, of course, all the various scientific discoveries, the different rocks that we found on the moon. There are two main rock types on the moon, and they form the highlands and the, let's call them, flatlands, or the mare. They have all weird and wonderful names like the Sea of Tranquility, but there are two main rock types on the moon, but there are also smaller amounts of other rock types that has been discovered, and volcanic glass and glutinates is important, and scientific discovery again as the second issue. How about, the weathering of the moon? There's no water on the moon and there's no air on the moon. So weathering on the moon is mostly because of the impact of micrometeorites. And they have an impact on how the regolith is formed. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, regolith is essentially the in situ weathered material. So the first few centimeters or meter of the Earth, the moon, because we use the term regolith also here on the Earth, and there are a lot of dualities of what is happening on the moon and how it can and is applied to what is happening on the moon and the Earth, linking the two together. Then the moon is very much steeped in the mythology of the humans of Earth. We all know the expression or common thing that the moon phase is 28 days, and it coincides with the period cycle of women. So it is often referred to as the lunar cycle, but in many cultures the moon has played a very strong role, and I'm thinking specifically of the Native Americans, the even the Khoisan and so on of Southern Africa, and then of course it goes all haywire in the beliefs of werewolves that come out at full moon, and if you get bitten by a werewolf you will turn into a werewolf. So there's a lot of mythology around the moon, but of course also a lot of cultural things. I hate the word things, but there's a lot of culture related to the moon. Then technological innovations. How do we get to the moon? How do we keep safe? How do we breathe when we're on the moon? There was an issue brought up by all of the astronauts that went to the moon, and if I remember correctly, the last person on the moon was Cernan. But from the first to the last, they all mentioned the absolute fine dust of the moon and how it got into the cufflinks, how did it, how it came into the airlocks and negatively impacted that. And I'm quickly going to go back one step. As I'm thinking of the dust, and I spoke about the regolith, when we first went to the moon, we weren't too sure what to expect in terms of density. So the Apollo landers had a dish-shaped foot, but underneath the dish shape there was this long straight pole, because we didn't know how deep the regolith is. As it turned out, the regolith is not very deep, but it is extremely cohesive, and that's why the footprints are so clear, crisp and clear, that they even acted as geotechnical experiments, because the cohesiveness and bearing capacity could be inferred just from that. Then in terms of future missions, there was strong belief that man will return to the moon in 2020. That didn't happen. It's now 2025, and it seems that the first manned mission will be in 2030. I'm not going to say too much about the impact of the current American administration and how it has negatively impacted this whole process, with lots of people being laid off at NASA and the impact on progress. And then the question of how does future missions to the moon impact the Earth? Will we have improved communication between the Earth and the moon? Will new technologies be formed in the vacuum of the moon, and also the materials on the moon? How can we benefit from that? And again, when I say we, I obviously mean mankind and not me and you personally. So for now, this is going to be the extent of this particular interview. I will look at other issues of a much more technical nature in detail, but these points, the history of the moon, scientific discoveries, mythology and culture, technological innovation, future missions, and the impact on the Earth should definitely warrant more detailed investigation just on that before we even get to the real nitty-gritty of soil formation. Can we build permanently on the moon? Is a nuclear reactor the way to go? And just out of interest, I probably will bring it up again. So it's a proposal by China and Russia, and several other countries are slated to be involved, of which there are 5 African countries, Eritrea, and several others, but including South Africa. I live in South Africa. I've been involved in 2 NASA projects in a little town called Maatjiesfontein. And remember, South Africa had been involved in tracking of the Apollo missions right from day one. So expect to hear a little bit more about the contribution of South Africa. But until the next time, goodbye.